We're gonna do it live.
We'll start now. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the 10 spot. It's a brand new thing that ain't never been done before, and we might do it again, and we might not. Looks like Tom Simmons is joining us. Let's see if we can get him in here. Hey, Tom Simmons.
Hey.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I on?
You're on. I'm just doing the intro, so sit there, and I'll bring you on in a sec. 10 spot. This is basically a pilot, so we could crush this and do it a lot, or this could be the first and last time you ever fucking see this thing. It's basically a chance to talk to some of my favorite buddies and cover 10 subjects in an hour. So we'll get to that in just a sec. A couple housekeeping things. Quick Snaps, the podcast is Mondays at 7:30, right here where you're seeing this. 50 Toast is generally Tuesdays at 9. We're replacing that tonight with this little experiment. Go to patreon.com, type in Costaki, and figure out how to become a part of the team, get some cool perks, and support the things. And come join us at All Pro Lines, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at All Pro Lines. It's football comedy fun, and we welcome your input. We've had some great submissions actually recently. And that's a good segue to these characters who are three of the best comics I know. Let's see. We'll start with you, Brian Miller. A new weekly joke series for Vikings territory, I saw.
Yeah, I just started that this week. By the way, Costaki, you've got so many brands. I think you're in Nexium.
Fair. Totally fair. I try to collapse them into one brand. Also, Brian's got a new album called 2020. It's literally just out, and it's about 2020.
Yeah, me and Robert, a guy named Robert Brill, I think some of you guys know. But yeah, we each do 20 minutes about 2020, and we recorded it the week before Thanksgiving, the day of the final shutdown, before the whole state shut down. So it's literally the freshest possible jokes you could get on a record.
I love it.
Great.
Great.
That is great. Tom Ryan, you can hear him all the time on Sirius XM radio. He's the king of corporate and baking soda comedy. Tom Ryan, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you, Costaki. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming, man. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too.
And Tom Simmons with the hot and spicy credit just coming in. Or did you just finish working?
I worked. I'm sorry. I fell asleep and I laid there and I was like, I'm going to get up in time. I'm going to get up. And then yes, I just finished working.
Yeah.
Tom's a staff writer for the brand new Ms. Pat show on BET Plus. Is that the right outlet?
That is. It will be when it's released. Yes.
Okay. That's cool.
Way to go, Tom.
Yeah, that's great, dude.
What better year to have a job that's not stand-up comedy?
Oh, yeah. But it's been a lifesaver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a sanity saver and all that stuff. You know, it's nice.
That's
Plus,
awesome.
Miss Pat is fantastic. She is one of the funniest characters in comedy. No question.
I totally agree. And her stories are, her life is such a crazy thing. It's great.
Yeah, and there's, I don't know. I guess this is okay to say. I don't know. There's a famous video that is just edited scenes of her physically assaulting audience members on stage. That is like a bootleg that goes around, and it's because there's been several incidents, all of which are on tape, and someone has them bootlegged. And I was at a party with some comics, and they put it in, and we just watched Miss Pat literally physically beat both men and women with her fists on stage, and in every instance, she went back to the show. Yeah. She never didn't go back to the mic. It's unbelievable. She's amazing.
If you're watching and you're not familiar with Miss Pat, do a little Googling and YouTubing. You'll enjoy. She's hard to believe she's real, and she is.
Yeah.
And she's from right here in Atlanta. We got a good geographic spread here. We got Tom's in North Carolina. We got Tom Ryan's in New York City, and we got Brian Miller from Minneapolis, and I'm here in my old hometown, Atlanta, Georgia, for a little stretch.
Oh, you're in Atlanta. All right.
Yeah. It's good to be here.
Are you in are you in the old writing room by any chance?
I am. As a matter of fact, I am exactly that room. I told that story. I told a story today on a very rare corporate Zoom show that I had this afternoon about you and me up here discovering that all of our jokes were funnier as Brian Regan.
That's great.
And that happened in this room. And then later, cut to 7-10 years later, I'm working with Brian Regan. we're literally like doing my grapes joke. You remember, like, how many grapes before you like run over, kick you out of the store?
Yeah.
19. You know. So cut to about a decade later, I'm working with Regan at the Improv in DC, one of my favorite clubs, and they had a tradition at the time, like Thursday nights, the staff would hang, and when they were done zing out the registers or whatever, they would all have drinks and hang with the comics, and they would take turns going on stage and like fucking around, and they like the bartender would go up and do Dave Attell jokes, and like like the one of the waitresses would go up and do whatever, some other jokes from other comics they loved, and totally randomly, Brian had a couple drinks. He was with his fiance at the time. He goes up and he does an impression of Brian Regan where he's like over crouching,
That's great.
overdoing all the things. And then he did an impression of me if I were Brian Regan. So he literally did my grapes joke as a cartoonish Brian Regan.
That's
it
tremendous.
was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
It was
Too
so
bad
cool.
tape wasn't rolling. That'd be
That's
so
right.
cool
I would love to have
yeah.
that too. Yeah, it was great. All right, well, let's dive into the 10 spot. We're going to try to hit 10 subjects and be done this side of 10 o'clock local. Here we go.
That's Trump's plan for the night, by the way. He's got to hit 10 subjects in the next hour.
Wow. I can tell you this, very rarely am I in a room where I feel like intimidated by like I'm going to be outwritten by even one other guy, and I'm like, oh my god, there's 3 other guys that are going to outright me right here.
No, we're not. We're doing right. Actually, I discussed this with Brian Miller. We could do a version of this, which we might do sometime, where we all have the subjects ahead of time and work on it. I barely threw these together. I haven't written anything, and you guys don't even know what they are. So this is no pressure. We're just hanging.
All right. This is pilot.
If we stumble into some hilarity, it's a bonus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. First question. Name a good thing about the pandemic. This crazy year that we've had.
The Miss Pat Show.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
I've gotten caught up on sleep.
Oh.
I got very lucky to have, from a personal standpoint, to have qualified for unemployment, because in New York, I think they did it everywhere, but self-employed qualified. So that strung me along for plenty of months. And I mean, the downtime, it's not that crushing, but I miss comedy,
Yeah,
obviously.
I miss comedy too, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got some unemployment too. It took forever. I would call and call and call. It was like I felt like I was calling like a radio station in the 80s, like caller number 98, win $600 a week for the next month.
That's how Mitch McConnell wants to do the next stimulus package, actually. Like, you got to know the phrase that pays, and it's stop the steal. That's a whole other thing.
They were only open from 8 a.m. to noon at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm like, that's not a full-time job. These people should
No, that's genius, because here's what they know is that anybody who probably doesn't deserve unemployment will never wake up in time to make that phone call. They're weeding out all the people who are actually trying to get a job.
Yes. Yes. It's like the homeless. You know what I mean? If you're homeless and you sleep through rush hour, you have screwed yourself for that day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's called surge pricing if you're homeless.
The good thing for me is I've got to I got to spend time with my family that I didn't have. Like this time last year, it seems like a weird complaint, but I was exhausted from never being home. Like on the gone here, get on a ship, go to a thing in Canada. It was like just flight, airport, show, like just home never. And
you don't even realize how burnout you get from travel when it's stacked up too much.
It took me, literally, I don't know how you guys feel, but outside of the money wise of working, it took me a while to really miss stand-up. And then I was like, I was at a point where I was like, do I really care enough to even really want to do this anymore? And then I almost didn't. And then there was some like open mics in town that I started to hit, and a couple of them was like, this is awful, just depressing and awful. And then you sort of get the bug back because you're naturally love telling the jokes, So in that time, it was cool to basically throw away everything I've ever done and sort of start over. Like Brian's talking about doing the 20 minutes thing. It's like it was fun to start building material back, from scratch and be like, oh man, I have an hour of stuff. I just can't wait to get on stage and massage and work out and get to where it's a set that works together. And, I still haven't, you don't have the stage time to do that. I don't, but I have the material ready to work out. You know what I mean?
That's great.
I love that.
I think that's the drive of it and I abandoned this for years and I regret it. I got lazy and just constantly coming up with new ideas. I would write them down into my notes, but then I just wouldn't work them out on stage. It just out of laziness and out of bad habit. And then about a year ago, I started getting into that groove of rediscovering what a joy it is to get new material to work. And it kind of, I suddenly found myself enjoying the game again. Whereas for a long time, I just said, I just don't like doing this anymore, but I painted myself into a corner. So obviously, since I regained enthusiasm, the universe had to send a global pandemic to stomp upon that. So I partially blame myself for all of this mess.
Now I know who to blame.
Yeah,
I've been blaming Trump for 8 months.
I've been crawling out of my skin every single day. I can't. Stand up is such a fundamental part of my daily process. It's just like the way I process the day's events.
Yeah.
It's just like I try to never go more than 2 days without getting on stage. I thought maybe I can readapt. No, I cannot readapt. And in fact, I've been less prolific in my other work because I didn't realize how much stand-up was like an engine that was like kind of powering it, and it was like scratching an itch, and I was doing that, and then that would give me energy that then I would put to another thing, and they were really feeding each other because I'm a fiction writer, and I wrote way more fiction last year than this year, which makes no sense. Right?
It doesn't.
The channels were opened, I think.
Yes, exactly.
That's what
it all kind of connects right to the same root kind of inspiration thing. And so what I found when I'm doing both of them is that I never have time to get sick of either of them. If I'm feeling really burned out about one, I can just be like, you know what, screw that, and just focus on the other thing. And it seems like a joy. And you always have the two things going, and they're always powering each other. And so sometimes I'll even have an idea, and I'm like, I want to try to turn this into a story and a joke. So I'm actually really eager to get back to stand up so I can also do the other stuff more as well.
Yeah, right.
Wow, that's cool.
Very interesting to me that a joke would turn into a story that you would use in fiction. Like that's.
Yeah, I have a bit that is a short story that I've got on the market right now. I'm trying to sell, and it's like not every joke would work like that. Obviously, it's more of a bit about Christmas that I don't even do the bit anymore. The bit kind of fell away, but the joke remains.
Yeah.
It's all about the fireplace guy. It's like the Yule log joke, about Christmas joke, about basically imagining what life must be like for the guy who has to spend all Christmas sitting alone in a TV studio, putting logs onto a fire so that we can all stare at a virtual fireplace.
That's great.
But it has like a narrative angle to it, Yeah, it's a funny, like the joke is like kind of silly, zing zing, but the story is more like, what would it be like to spend a Christmas alone, and like what would happen to that guy?
Yeah.
That's fun. For most of us, a long ass joke is just a joke that needs to be trimmed, not to be printed.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Fat it's into art, apparently. I don't know.
What this joke needs is more fat. Let me add that.
That's great to me that you can be good at both of those things, because those are so different, the skills, and it's cool to have an outlet that doesn't require a laugh. That's great, man.
I'm so bummed because I had just found this perfect equilibrium where I was publishing stories and doing a lot of stand up. And the best part of it is if you write a story, it's good. You might take you 5 months to sell it, and it might come out 5 months after that. So like there's this super delayed gratification thing. But of course, stand up is right. I had the idea today. Let's go to the mic and crush it today. And I would love doing that. And then there would be days where you weren't doing good at stand up, and then the story would come out, and you would be like, oh my God, a book came out, and I'm in this book, and it's cool. And it felt like this mitzvah that you didn't do anything for because you did the work so much before. So you were like seeding productivity while you were kind of doing it as a factory. And that was a good rhythm. I'm looking forward to it.
Wow, that's cool. So my first question was, what's a good thing about the pandemic? And we had this great conversation. My second question is, how are you feeling creatively? And we've already covered it. We got 2 in and 1.
Yeah. Well, I can say
that's how good we are at this.
Yeah, for the first few months, I don't think I jotted much stuff into my notes at all, just because the incentive was gone. You can't try it out. Why jot it down? And that became a habit of just not entering many things into my notes. And now I've realized lately, I have been entering more things into the notes, so that's a decent sign.
I ended up getting a lot of that open mic sort of natural comic, like page to the stage kind of thing, out on going idea to Facebook. You know what I mean? So it became where I was doing, like, working out a lot of my jokes and overwriting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got into that.
Yeah, most of my outlet was Twitter, bashing Trump. I mean, that's been 4 years, but especially during the shutdown, all my mental energy went into that, and lost followers over that, which is fine. I get it.
Yeah.
You're sick of seeing me talking
on the screen there. Go check him out.
I mean, you oh, there we go.
Yeah,
you get
Real
sick
Brian
of me
Miller
bashing
is
away.
a great follow. Tom Simmons is a terrible follow on Twitter, but a great follow on Facebook. So go find him over there.
Yeah, I found that Twitter brought out, like, the real negativity. Like, I found that what did best for me on Twitter was being a total jerk. You know what I mean? And then, so I fed into that. And then I started, I couldn't help but I would follow Franklin Graham and Trump, and I'd just go on there and just get angry. And then Twitter suspended me for a week for replying to Trump that he should put a gun in his mouth. So they suspended me for a week.
Oh, wow.
And then I just never went back. And then maybe 6 months later, they emailed me and apologized and told me I'd been right all along and I'd please come back.
Really?
No, not really.
That's very interesting that they would do that.
But that is why I didn't. That is that was the impetus to finally get off there. You know.
It's like why I like Twitter over Facebook, and I don't know why. I do not like Facebook. I find it intimidating and overwhelming. And anytime I post on there, it just overwhelms me. And then I start spending 3 days saying, was that the right thing to say? Should I have said that? You know?
Yeah.
Whereas and especially when it comes to politics and whatnot, I always felt like on Twitter, you get to argue politics with strangers. On Facebook, you kind of have to dive in and argue politics with friends and relatives and old childhood friends, things like that. So I just avoid it altogether. I just can't go down that road.
You don't have to argue politics on either.
No, exactly. But inevitably,
are you sure?
Inevitably, that's all we've been talking about.
Those are the choices. I could either argue politics here or there. Those are my choices.
I mean, I started talking about comedy and sports, and then it just became all Trump all the time. And I'm so glad it's almost over.
I treat both of them as essentially a one-way conversation, which is I have dispensed a thought. If you would like this thought, you're welcome to it. If not, I don't care. If you have a thought, I don't care about that. I respond. I mean, I only really respond on Twitter to my friends. You know, like obviously if Costaki's like, oh, that was funny, or oh, you're wrong about that team or whatever, like that, you know, I'll chop it up with my friends. But strangers, I just hit the heart button and move along. I'll think about it. I just don't consider it my duty to respond to anyone, and that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, here we go. Question 3. Chris Bowers loves Zoom comedy open mics. He said he's never going to do another regular open mic ever. Some comics hate them. Where are you guys on the Zoom comedy spectrum?
I don't think Bowers means that.
You don't think he means that?
No, Bowers loves to say bullshit, and I think that's some bullshit Bowers likes to say. I like Bowers. Don't get me wrong, but it's bullshit. There's no way. Anybody who says they get as much out of a Zoom mic was doing the regular mic wrong.
He's not saying he gets as much. I don't think he's saying he gets it as much. He's saying he likes to have none of the other trappings of driving and traffic and parking and waiting. And
where does he live?
He lives in LA.
Oh, well, okay. Well, yeah, LA is famously a terrible place to do mics. So actually, maybe he's a little, I still think he's being full of shit, but it makes more sense in LA. But no, I mean, I want to see the other, there's so many people I want to see, and there's so many people I want to ignore, and I can't do either of those from my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just like Tom Ryan. Well, I got to ignore people. I don't know where to go to do that.
No, there's some people that I want them to know that I'm really not thinking about them, but they can't know that if I'm here. I have to walk past them in the bar and not say hello, so I get my message across.
That's great. The early on, I saw that trend coming along about there's going to be Zoom comedy, and my first instinct was, It's not the same. Stand up is about rhythm and feeding off laughter. And I said, I will not do it. And I still haven't. And I know at this point I won't. I've stuck to my guns. People have tried to talk me into it. And I just said, nope.
Right.
I'm not comfortable. Give me a stage and an audience. I'll be fine. But that, it was the right call for myself.
No, this is
Some
it, though.
people can do it.
This is how Zoom comedy works. The format of stand-up, right? It's all a fake, right? Stand-up is all about pretending to have a conversation. You phrase everything so that it sounds like you're having a natural conversational rhythm, right? But it's weird because you're not. You're just talking. So it's this whole structure around that. And as soon as you get on Zoom, that structure completely collapses and the artifice becomes weirdly apparent in a way that you would think it would be less, but it's more apparent. But if you just do a Zoom show where some funny people talk about stuff, it works great. I think the mistake is trying to bring that very atmosphere-driven format to an atmosphereless format.
Yeah,
wow, that's a great point. Well so it's almost like you almost have to shift into podcast mode. So
yes,
it's more radio. It's more conversation.
Everybody who was good at Zoom comedy was good at radio. That's what I found. Everybody who knew how to go on with, when you go on with the DJ and you're kind of telling your jokes, but you can't just tell it. You kind of got a conversational, set it up, and a good DJ can tee you up, and it sounds great. Man, that works fantastic on Zoom. And so people who had that skill could cheat that way, and you would talk to the hosts instead of I'd watch these open micers just like do an open mic set in their house. It was so stiff and awkward.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a weird thing. It does work better than I thought it would, though. It's kind of some of the elements still remain and still have life. They're not as good, but it's there. It works better than I would have guessed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. All right. This one requires a long setup, and I think it's worth it, and we'll find out.
You put a lot of wrist into that, you really have a fanciful motion.
Number 4. I did a cruise ship years ago, and I hadn't done one in a long time as a comic, and I didn't do the work. And when I was on stage, it all hit me like a ton of bricks that I was not prepared, and I was terrible. It was one of the worst shows of my life. I didn't really do enough of the homework ahead of time, and I was in the wrong place, and I was doing club stuff, and I would do a setup, and I realized I couldn't finish that sentence, and I was stammering, and I was sweating. I'm not exaggerating. It was one of the worst shows of my life. I came off stage, and a passenger saw me in the hallway as I was going back to the room, and her response to me was, "Are you okay?" That's what she said to me after seeing my comedy show.
Wow.
I go back to the room, and I do all the homework as fast as I can, and this segue, and I can't do this chunk, and this is the closer, and this is the opener. Trim, put it all together, get myself a pep talk. I'm the funniest guy, at least on this ship. What the hell am I being scared about?
Right.
Go up there, plant your feet, do what you do. You're good at this. I go, and I have a very good set. Not fantastic, but like really solid. And at that time, it was in the old Royal Caribbean days when they would do 2 dinner seatings, and half of the ship would see one show, and then they would go to dinner, and the other half would have dinner, then see the show. Now I'm on the ship for another 36 hours, and every time I see somebody in the hallway, I know within 1 second which show they saw.
That's great.
I would get literally, "Hey, funny guy," or like they would try to not let me see that I saw them. They hated me. And that's something that you guys all relate to, but I think non-comics, like they don't have any understanding of the range. And that was literally the same microphone, the same place, the same clothes, most of the same jokes, and the same night. And I was the king of the ship, and I was the worst comic in the history of the world.
Unbelievable.
In the same
You didn't change shirts in between shows?
I don't think I did change shirts. I probably should have.
You gotta get rid of it. That was the unlucky shirt.
Oh, that was the shirt? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. You don't do that where like in between shows you're like, this just didn't work. Like you just you feel embarrassed all the way down to your if a shirt failed, like you have 2 bad shows in a shirt, like that doesn't go back on stage.
Yeah.
How superficial is this theory? It's about your shirt?
Sometimes, dude.
Oh,
I
it
have
can
good luck
be.
t-shirts
It can be.
Yeah, I have good luck t-shirts that I mean, I don't even wear, like they're underneath what is probably my button-up shirt, but it's like, nah, that's a good shirt. I have good shows in that shirt. No one will ever see it. I know.
That's
Yeah.
funny. So my long winded question is: are there other things that folks don't know about what it is to be a comic? Is there anything you want to tell them, or is there anything they would be surprised to hear? I feel like that's a story when I tell it to non-comics, they're always like, "Wow!" Like they didn't
How is that
think of any of
possible?
those things. Right?
Mm.
There's no way that anyone who saw that first show on the ship could think that I'm a good comic who just had an
No.
off night. It would be impossible to think that.
And
Yeah.
it's a house of cards, and if the house never gets up and running, it's just disaster all around.
Right.
And
Yeah. Right.
I had a similar experience on a ship where I did 2 cruises in a row around the tip of South America. The
Oh,
first
wow.
one was so bad. Most of the people, I think the highest percentage of the people were from other countries. So there was a language barrier there. Then the next week, it was the same exact cruise, but this time it was mostly Americans and Canadians, and it could not have gone better. But the one cruise director had forwarded a message to the other cruise director: brace yourself, because this is going to be a long week with this comic coming up. He's horrible. And then I go and have a good week, and the guy says, how did that happen? But same material,
Right.
same exact material,
Different
and
shirt,
these
probably.
people, different shirt, and it was it can be so brutal. And I think one of the misconceptions people have is that, oh, you guys develop a thick skin. I never have. When I bomb, it hurts for months afterwards, and sometimes years afterwards. It fades, but the wounds are still there, and you reflect back on them and just cringe.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
You
I had
know?
a similar situation. I did when I did the 2020 recordings this last week. So we had Wednesday show, which was the warm up show, and then we had Thursday and Friday. So we had 2 shows Friday, 1 Thursday, and Acme is doing a thing where you can watch the shows on Zoom. The shows that are going on in the club, which I don't like. And the reason I don't like this is you don't know who's in the room, and you do subtly, weirdly, kind of adjust. The room has a context, and everyone in the room knows the context. And the context of this room on Wednesday during the warm-up show was there was 2 ladies in the front who were heckling the whole night, and they were really vocal Trump supporters, and they were screaming stupid stuff, and everybody was mad, and the audience hated them. And it was already, all the rest of the shows were great, but it was that there was like 15 people. It's a pandemic on a Wednesday,
Yeah.
And it's tough. So I get up, I go ahead and still do my whole set like I wanted to, because I wanted to practice, and they're heckling the whole time, and I let it go. And then at minute 30, I have 10 minutes left, and I said, all right, let's talk. And I went into these ladies, and then it got ugly, and it got mean, and I lost and then I brought it, but the audience was into it. It was fine. Well, I found out my mom's best friend in her entire life has never seen me before, and she zoomed into that show. She saw me have an ugly, filthy, vulgar meltdown. And I think one thing people don't realize is that's part of the process. Like, the sausage gets made in a kind of ugly ways.
Yeah.
And normally I would go to these small mics where there's no one there, and I would vent my anger there, and I would let my id run a little while, and I would try the darkest versions of these jokes, and I would yell at people. I would get it out of my system. And then I go to the medium mics, and I try to clean up, and you go to your regular show, and you put on the show. And with the pandemic condensing everything, it was like I had to do it all really fast. And it was really... I'm never going to be able to explain to the very nice lady named Cindy and her husband that they just saw the ugly part of the process. Yeah. And they're like, I swear, if you watch 2 later, you saw that this is how it ends up. But like, I have to have this confrontation with these ladies. Like, I have to.
And their opinion is going to be locked for a while until proven otherwise.
Totally. Oh yeah. I could have 3 sets in a row on the Tonight Show that crushed, and they'd be like, "Yeah, but we saw him say the C word to some lady in front," which I didn't do. I didn't actually do.
That sticks with you though,
right?
But it was close.
Yeah, right.
I thought
That's
it really.
A great point about the sausage, man. It is ugly sometimes.
Yeah.
And you do have to do the ugly parts to be great, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I love when I see like uber big shots making the sausage like that. I mean, I've had the chance to watch Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, reading jokes and floundering around,
right.
and it's cool to see a handful of these guys really just flounder and work and they can quickly get out of it because they're so good. But to see that really raw first phase is interesting.
Yeah. It's hard for everybody. Building new material is hard for everybody, without question.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
That's something people don't realize, is that it's really difficult to get a bit working. I remember somebody after a show, I did a brand new bit, and they go, "Yeah, I don't know about that one." You know, an audience member. It's like, now my incentive is to, no, I'm going to get that one to work, just to prove that random person wrong, because I know there's something good in there, on an odd topic. It's like, you can't judge it first time out of the gate.
I know, and I saw Mark Norman respond to somebody who was like, these jackasses that come on Twitter, like, that joke sucked. Like, I'm here trying jokes. That's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, give me a break on a single tweet that didn't sing.
And with such certainty. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you run into. Like when you show people the back, like the comedy writing notebook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know about you guys, but it's a book filled with writing, and there's 5 jokes that really end up making it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, wow, I got 5 jokes out of this book. This is
right.
You know what I mean? Like, and so that's the one art
that.
form where I don't even feel weird calling it art, but you know what I mean? But it's that one art form that you watch it, you watch it in its terrible form. Like, it has to go through that to get there. You don't get to watch Da Vinci's shitty sketch before he erased all the bad stuff out of it. You know what I mean? And edited it down. You see the finished product. And that's for almost every other art form, except for maybe not. But that's how I think of stand-up.
It is true. It's just stand-up is like, in a Buddhist way almost. It's a process. No matter what, even Maria Bamford, the weirdest writer out there, they're participating in this sort of process, right? No matter how out there you are. And it's frustrating that you could never explain to the layperson, like, if you saw me on a bad night or a good night, that's not who I am. You just saw me at 2 different parts of the process.
Yeah.
And I'm just participating in a process. I'm not either part of the process. I'm just doing the thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a shame that's not the closer. Say that again.
That's part of my process.
That's good.
All right. Dramatic shift. This might be a surprise to Tom Simmons. Does anyone here know what it's like to have COVID? Anyone? Simmons?
What?
Miller?
Question number 5?
Is it you, Tom Ryan?
I did. I had about, you know what I did? And I thought about this. I was pursuing happiness is what I was doing. And some friends of mine that used to be in my pool league, they moved out to Colorado, and they have a great pool table out there, and they invited me out, and I said, you know what, I've been locked down for 8 months. I could use a little bit of just getaway. And then they also gave me, or got me booked on a comedy show. Somehow during those travels, I caught COVID.
Wow.
Did they?
And
did they get sick?
Well, here's the thing. This is
somehow when I went to a bar and got on a plane and did a
no, I know,
but somehow COVID slipped in.
No,
I don't know how it happened.
Have you done any flying in the last?
No.
But there were plenty of articles when I booked this trip that said flying is actually pretty safe, and flight attendants are 30% less likely to catch COVID than the average person, believe it or not. So
I've heard that flying is safer.
Yeah,
I've heard that's
and
true.
I had 2 friends who had been flying back and forth to Denver, and they were always okay when they came back. But as the trip approached, and I did a comedy show, and I might have caught it there. But anyway, as I was flying back home, I thought I better get tested, because the day after I got back, some symptoms started to creep up.
What was your first symptom?
Chills and sweats.
And
then
that was from the comedy, though, right?
Then a cough, yeah.
It's the name of my new album.
Well, I was doing a joke on stage about how, hey, thanks a lot that the symptoms of altitude sickness are the same as COVID, and they are pretty much.
Wow.
So I thought, this is altitude sickness. Then I'm flying home. I felt fine, and then it kind of hit me when I got home. And anyway, on the Monday after I got back, I said, my brother was telling me, you got to call your doctor. I'm talking to the doctor. He hears my cough. He goes, "You got to get to the emergency room."
Wow.
Now you can't go to a doctor because they're not equipped to handle possible COVID. So I'm thinking, well, I can't take an Uber. That puts a driver at risk, and I'm not even yet sure if I'm positive. And I can't walk. It's about 1.5 miles, and I'm exhausted after walking 20 feet. So I called an ambulance, and they said, "All right, be laying down somewhere. We'll come in and get you. Make sure your doors are open." And I said, "I'll meet you out front." And I went out and walked out onto the ambulance. "Hey, you guys, yeah, how you doing?" "All right, I'm ready." And then as I walked up the stairs of the ambulance, I kind of lost my balance. I got dizzy, and I laid down on the gurney, and they took me to the ER, ran some tests. Turned out I was positive, and I just wrote it out.
Wow.
It was strange.
No,
And
I
it
don't
got-
know. What wrote it out? How? Like what?
Yeah.
Like wrote it out? How? Like did
just
you start to
stayed
get
in
worse and worse?
it never, that was the peak. And they gave me some antibiotics and some cough medicine, prescription cough medicine. And then I had some Motrins and all that. And I just tried to drink water. I went about 6 days without even being able to, I had no appetite for 6 days. Never
Wow.
lost my sense of smell, never lost my sense of taste. But it was as sick as I've ever been, put it that way.
Wow.
Just all I wanted to do was sleep.
Do you feel safer now?
In terms of now I can't get it again because I can.
Yeah.
Get
Do
it
you
again.
feel a little like less germophobic now, where you're like, okay, I feel good. I mean, not that people aren't catching it again, but do you feel like you have some level of?
No, not really. No, because what's
Okay.
his name? Saban, the Alabama coach. He caught it twice within a few months, right?
But I think the second time you
Nick
catch it,
Saban?
you're infectious, but I don't think you suffer the same symptom level because you
Yeah,
develop
maybe
the
not.
antibodies. So I think if you got it again, I don't think it would be that intense.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, who works as a nurse down in Philadelphia, she said that the word is that if you've had it, you should still get the vaccine. So it's like, all right, I'll take her advice.
And you should wear
So
a mask because you can still give it to other people, even
Yeah.
if you feel
Well,
okay. So that would be the
I'm no
danger.
longer, if I got it a second time, because now I went and got tested and I'm negative now and all that. So I'm out of the woods in terms of being contagious. But so the people I stayed with, they're these artists that had done very well in art in New York, husband and wife team. And the guy was in my pool league. They invited me up. So he tested negative. She tested positive. So I don't know if I gave it to them. Did they give it to me? They came to the comedy show. Maybe we all got it in the green room at the comedy show. The MC on the comedy show, he had tested positive. So I really don't know how it all came to be. And I'm very careful. I do the mask wearing, hand washing, I've been pretty diligent, but in retrospect, probably not the best decision. But on the other hand, I was like, I've done nothing for the past 8 months. And other people had been flying, and I thought, I'll be all right.
Right.
Wow, it was
So
strange.
interesting. Did you have the thing that I think I would have is sort of this heavy fear that you're going to fall off a cliff in terms of health at any point?
Yeah, because you keep hearing those stories. Oh, I woke up from a nap and I couldn't breathe. So whenever I would go to sleep, I go, God, I hope I don't wake up halfway through unable to breathe.
You're literally doing the "Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep" prayer.
Yeah. And mentally, I felt a lot better after I went to the emergency room. They tested me out and all that. And at one point, I had to do a chest X-ray. And the woman says, all right, stand up against that wall where the square is. Take a deep breath and hold your breath. And I could not hold my breath, and I almost fainted. And she came running around from the other side of the screen, go, oh, my God, are you okay? And I thought, oh, man, they're going to keep me overnight. And then they let me go.
Wow.
And then I felt good enough psychologically to where I go, all right, I'm not taking the ambulance back home. I'll just walk back home. And I was able to walk back home. Very strange. It was a very,
I'm glad you're
very
okay,
strange week. Yeah, doing better.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being open about that.
That's the first time I've talked about all of that in any public forum, but so be it.
All right.
Well, I'm glad you got through that, man.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just read, you said the couple, one of them had it and one of them didn't. I had just read a headline yesterday about somehow COVID is not spreading. The spread rate is low amongst like family when they're together, like your internal family, like
Yeah.
spouses aren't catching it from each other, which seems weird to me because that's how they're
It-
saying it's spreading via Thanksgiving and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. And it
So,
could be
you know.
that the guy had it, and maybe he was already now no longer symptomatic and negative after having been positive.
That's a
Oh,
good
right.
Maybe she was still testing positive. Who knows?
My joke was, yeah, because nothing keeps people 6 feet apart like marriage. Come on.
I was going to say,
That's great.
I don't care what the
That's
sign
right,
says.
a bunch
To
of
be
members
safe,
of,
I'm sleeping at my girlfriend's. Come on.
a bunch of members of my dad's family got it. My dad's family got it. My dad didn't get it, and people were like, "Oh, it's so great your dad didn't get it." I'm like, "Dad's been keeping away from everybody for so long.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's been in the same room for 10 years."
Right.
Dad doesn't hug people anymore.
Yeah.
I think of my old American grandfather holding the newspaper like this. He would have been safe from everybody. You know?
That's so
right.
true.
All right, let's invite people who are watching to send a question. Here we go. Question number 6. I feel like I want to go first on the vaccine, and I was kind of daydreaming, like, what do I do first? Like, if the world, like, let's say the world like fixed itself tomorrow, where would you go do first? What do you miss the most?
Stand up.
Stand up.
Yeah.
Pool.
Although I'm still doing some of it, to open mics, or, like 2 other comics and a couple like rooftop shows. But yeah, I would want to get back to comedy, man, and maybe maybe go see my parents.
Yeah.
Maybe spend time with my wife.
The thing I have to say, it was a real revelation when I realized I miss pool more than I miss comedy.
Wow, that is interesting.
Because I really got hooked on pool, and I miss that the
Right.
pool rooms aren't open, and I just that's just a fact.
Right.
It seems like
I
on
like
a pool
stand-up,
table though,
don't
you're
get
going to
me
be of any real like bar hangout thing. Pool tables seem like you're going to naturally stay a distance away from each other.
There is
you can
distancing.
at least be on opposite sides of the table.
Yeah.
Or
But then you realize, well, at the end of each rack, somebody's reaching in, grabbing the balls, putting them on the table.
right.
You scratch, you take the cue ball, hand it to the other guy, that kind of stuff. And but there is natural distancing, no doubt.
Right. Yeah, for me, it's I mean, we all have the same answer. It's stand up, but after after stand up, it's I'd love to go sit at a poker table again. I miss that.
Oh, right.
I miss the freedom of just open travel and sitting at a restaurant and all the regular
Yep.
day-to-day stuff. It just seems so far away sometimes.
Yeah,
I write in
restaurants
a
and
coffee shop.
bars. I mean, just God, I can't wait to sit
Yeah.
at a bar and have a blue moon.
Right.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know.
Yeah, there's a coffee shop by my house, Royal Grounds, which is it's just a beautiful spot. It's perfect lighting, and I write there probably 5-6 days a week in normal times, and
Yeah.
that helps my productivity too. Is having that. It's almost like my office, and
Right.
and seeing Joanne and Jim who own it, and then I knew all the baristas, and just like that kind of cheersy vibe, and people from my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Other writer Kate DiCamillo would come in every now and then. It's like, oh, Kate's here. It was nice, and those little. It's not the big things. It's the daily, the Monday Acme open mic and the coffee shop during the day. I could just not go to a live concert for another year if I could get that back.
Yeah. Right. I agree.
Well,
I miss that. I had a little bit of a pattern. This is such a California thing. I would jump on the electric scooter and ride like 10 blocks to this little street that was near us. It's called Larchmont. It was just this cool walkable street, and I could get a BLT and sit there and write. And then, there's a coffee shop and a thing and a bagel shop. I just loved that. I was very productive in that situation. That stuff kind of has completely gone away from me, and I miss it.
I think it's hard to make art during the pandemic, and the thing that so many people are like, "Why haven't you written a novel yet?" Which is very annoying. But most people haven't read a novel. I'm supposed to have written one. But what people don't realize is so much of art and whatever art you make is about input, and it's not like the input means you sat down and researched something necessarily, or you had this crazy near-death. It could be. But a lot of that input is I was out in the day and I saw a guy and he had a certain look to him, or I ran into someone and I had this interaction. It's all these little tiny inputs that are all kind of going into your subconscious and pinging off one another. And you need to have a bunch of different things all going on at once. And that's somehow the pearl comes out of that, or, sometimes it doesn't. But with bereft of that, it's just weird. weird to have this like static, no input thing. It's like you're cranking the Play-Doh machine up and down, but you didn't put any Play-Doh in there, so nothing's coming out.
Yeah, I'd become pretty not reclusive, but I'm not a huge social person, anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
So yeah,
hadn't noticed.
Are you being sarcastic or?
Oh,
Yes, I've known you for 30 years. You've always been weird and distant.
I'm that way too, actually.
Yeah.
A little bit reclusive. So it wasn't that much of a pivot.
Right. I'm not allowed now when
Yeah.
I'm walking around with I'm a coffee drinker. The biggest thing for me is I can't like get my coffee and then go do a thing and where I'm walking around like in the store drinking my coffee or go to the bookstore and drink my coffee. I have to, all right, shit. I guess I'm leaving it here in the car and running in and getting my thing and then coming back, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't have as many sort of like interactions with strangers and stuff like that as like Brian's saying, like you get that sort of stuff leads to an interaction that then sparks your mind, for me at least, for joking with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like we used to joke, Costaki and I used to joke about like writing how much of a disconnect there is between time spent on a page and jokes accumulated on that page. It's like I used to get up and do the morning pages every day and get nothing out of those, but then be walking into a 7-Eleven and, you know, I've got 7 jokes in my head, you know, which aren't even related to anything I was talking about earlier, but because I got rid of the crap.
Yeah. You know, and you were pushing against the brick wall, building muscle. And then when the stuff presented itself, you were ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
and that's the other thing about stand-up that's so weird is because you really notice like when you're not on stage consistently, you don't get better. And then it's like, you know, like one night you're on and you tell a joke and then you get a new tag to it. And then you're like, oh, I got that new tag. And then if you're off for any amount of time, you get back on stage and you may not remember that tag, or now you got the tag, but you didn't develop the tag. And then the next thing after that to where
it didn't stick. It didn't lock in, or
so everything becomes choppy and blah, blah, blah. And then you just stop, like Tom was saying, you just stop progressing and getting better and even trying stuff, because now it's just about trying to remember the old stuff and pick and choose what you're going to use where, you know.
Right.
The cruise ship for me, I thought I would hate, and I ended up really being driven to come up with 5 different half hours, you know, for those on Carnival. At least it was 5 different shows. So it was like I was having fun trying to take all the old stuff and build those pieces of the late shows, 2 different late shows, 2 different early shows, like all that stuff. And, you know, and so I felt like I was finally figuring that, getting there to those.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I don't want to do any of that material anymore. You know.
Right. Right.
Do cruise ships
dust
exist?
it off.
Yeah, but do cruise ships exist after this?
Yeah.
You don't want to talk to me about what's
probably.
exist.
I do think probably, actually.
Well,
I caught that.
What was that, Tom?
So you don't want to talk to me about what I think is going to exist. I was like, why the cruise ships a year and a half ago when I would read about them building all the new ships, and I'd walk around the ship and they're talking about the new fleets they're building, and I'd just be like, are they not paying any attention to any of the environmental science? Why are they continuing to build these things? This isn't going to be a thing. I expect more collapse than what we're having. So that's how I am.
Maybe they figure these will just be our new apartment house buildings soon.
Yes.
We're all going to be living there.
Could be.
Park them like those poker rooms. They're on the water.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma now.
All right, that's a good segue to question 8. We're all grown-ups. Do you still have a dream car? Are you done with that phase? Do you see cars like, I wish I had that? Do you still have that, or is that over?
God, over. I'm happy to, like, I like living in New York. I actually enjoy not owning a car.
Yeah, right. I had that for 10 years.
But
I don't like. I've never been a car guy. I liked living in Chicago and not having a car. That was the best part of living there.
Yeah, it's nice.
I've never really had a dream car. I want to get rid of my gas truck and get an electric car. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, my son's actually going through it. Like he's 15, so he's a car guy. You know what I mean?
There you go.
But he just got a cheap, like 2000 MR2, Toyota MR2. You know, and his friends hate it. They're like, because it's not a truck or a big thing. It's like a little 2-seater convertible. You know what I mean? Just a little.
It's like
so
a good Fiero. It's a tiny little
Yeah.
fun car.
Yeah, right.
I only know I'm not that evolved. I still know the name of at least 10 active porn stars, so it's not like I'm mature. I just don't like cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty of teenage boy things I still get.
Funny example.
I instantly thought of your old joke, man, when you asked that question, Kostaki.
What's that? Oh, the 280ZX? Yeah.
Yes.
280ZX. I thought of Jeff Foxworthy's joke about that's not a Toyota MR2. He had an old joke about his early days.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
not a Toyota MR2. It's funny. It's a good joke.
Somebody used to do that's a NASCAR. That's where they got that word from. That's the same
Okay,
rhythm.
NASCAR. Yeah.
I instantly thought Russ Nagel or who's the guy that just died that's so funny from the South? Vic Henley.
Oh,
Oh yeah, Vic Henley.
God.
But it's not Vic. It's that joke's Vic's a little more original to me than that. That's a
I think so too. Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
That was
All right, we'll go
sad
the other
about
way
Vic.
since we did a silly one. Yeah, I was sad about
Yeah.
that too. I played some cards
Yeah,
with him. He
tough
was a
loss.
lovable, interesting.
he was one of the first comics I ever worked with. He was
Is
so over the top kind to me as a
Great.
headliner. He just,
Yeah.
hey man,
Great
relax,
guy.
you're doing great. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He was just
Mm-hmm.
Whenever
cool.
whenever a great
loss.
comic dies, all I can ever think about is all the comics that it should have been.
yeah.
Yeah.
like the old cliche about musical acts. You're like, really? That's the guy?
And
that's
yeah, exactly.
That's funny. The thing I always thought about Vic was I had this weird just happenstance that over the course of 20 years, I worked with Vic exactly twice. Once I did a guest set at the Funny Bone in St. Louis, and once I did a set like in front of him at Gotham in New York City, and both shows completely ate it.
Oh man.
There's no way that he could think I was funny, and I would play cards with him like 8 times a year, and I know in his head he was like, this fucking guy.
It's funny.
He was great though. He's a very friendly, lovable
guy.
character. Yeah, I liked him a lot. All right, number 9. What are you afraid of?
I honestly believe, like, I'm no longer afraid of COVID. I honestly believe.
Face your fears, everybody.
You're a Republican now.
Yeah, right. Our country isn't going to get back to the way it was in terms of even having hope for having kind of a somewhat united country. We're so divided, and I really just think something big has shifted in this country, and I'm afraid we might not return from this like complete chaos that we're in right now.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
And I don't mean to be, big topic. What am I afraid of?
No, I asked you what you're afraid of.
Yeah, like nothing. No other.
Could have asked your favorite
phobias
color
I
and
can
gotten
think
out of
or
this with no problem.
snakes or whatever. Yeah.
No, I hear you. There's just such a divisiveness, and we're the way the social media universe works. We're all in echo chambers, and we don't even listen to Walter Cronkite anymore. Everyone has their own news source. It's kind of scary.
It's exactly. It is. Yep.
Right.
I don't know that we all are in echo chambers, though. People say that. They're like, oh, well, you're in your bubble and I'm in my bubble. It's like, okay, guy from my hometown, your bubble is a bunch of white people who all have the same jobs, who've always been in the same town. And my bubble is people from 15 different countries and 15 different backgrounds with 15 different educational levels. I think I'm getting a much broader perspective.
Yeah, right. No,
Yeah,
it's not to say that there aren't people who are doing a better job at it. For sure, you are.
Right.
But
But I think almost anyone who lives in a city is in a certain way more educated, and again, in a certain way than people who live in a really small town or who have always lived in a small town.
It's funny you say that, man, because I thought that during the election, watching the maps, like even in the reddest states, like they would win everywhere except where people have learned to live together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like all the places where there's cities and people and, and cultures, they are all blue.
You rub elbows more.
Yeah. As a Southerner,
on a
I'm
daily
kind of
basis.
tired of hearing about, the South is this and the South is that. To me, it's a battle of urban versus rural. I mean, if you look at the map, that's the real divide. The northern states have the same map with the little blue dots in it and the big expanse of red. And
right.
Every road
Yeah.
comic knows that about like, yeah, you can say you're doing shows in Minnesota. Well, are you doing a show in Hibbing or are you doing a show in Minneapolis? Because Hibbing might as well be Arkansas, and Atlanta is in the South, and it's in a wonderful comedy city, or Austin or whatever.
Right. Hibbing. I've never even heard of Hibbing, and I'm a fucking road comic.
That's where Bob Dylan's from.
Dylan.
Wow.
Dylan's
Where's
hometown
Hibbing?
growing up.
Way
And
up on the
Kevin
Iron Range.
McHale. Kevin
Yep.
McHale and Bob Dylan. Yeah, then up on the Iron Range. Yep.
All right.
I was just getting ready to say I'm afraid of knowing where Bob Dylan was born.
Yeah. Born in Duluth,
No.
raised in Hibbing.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of my fears of doomsday and climate science are right. That's what I'm worried. That's what I fear. Like
Okay.
I hate waking up. Some days I wake up and when I last time I did this show, the 50 Toast show, I bet if you look back at, I'm like, I was in this crazy sort of, I can't even the level of gloom that I was feeling, you know what I mean? And every now and then that gets on me. Like when my wife's talking about my son's future in 10 years, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I just don't think that's a thing.
Oh,
So I hope that's my fear that I'm correct about that stuff, which I've been wrong about a lot of stuff in life. I hope this is one of them.
Have you ever, in a way, okay, because I agree with you, and I think you're right. I feel unburdened of the need to save for retirement, put it that way.
Yes.
I really do, genuinely. Are you ever afraid that you're wrong, right? And then everything will turn out kind of okay, and that you will have wasted a lot of time and energy in some capacity on this?
Yeah.
You'll have not smelled the roses.
Right. Yeah. But I have that about almost all of my life. Like I lived in a motorhome for 3 years, and you know what I mean, just travel. And I can look back at segments of my life a lot and be like, man, I wish I would have just enjoyed that more while it was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was always stressing about the next thing, or do we have enough to be doing this, and we have to do. Where if I would have just enjoyed everything the 30 or 40% more, I think my life would be a little different. Not that I'm not happy with where I am, but I'm just. So I've been that all the time. And I also, like you said, Brian, I kind of hope that I'm that 50s guy that built a bomb shelter and was like, we're all going to die soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's 80 years later and everybody's fine, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I went off on a tangent on my kind of downtime quarantine. I went off on a tangent watching Our Planet. I love all those David Attenborough series. But every single episode basically hits you with at the tail end. But sadly, 90% of this rainforest is now gone.
Yes.
And 90% of this reef is now gone. And it's just, I ended up realizing, like, you see all these amazing nature shots and all that, but each one has the same theme. This is all going away. And that's frightening.
Yeah.
Because it's all connected. We're all interconnected beings, and like this is an organism that we live on, the science is pretty bad for when carbon levels have been this high in the past history of the earth. So like for us to be able to survive this is going to be, you know, like the science when I started reading it a couple of years ago is 5-7 years old, you know what I mean? Maybe and older, like, and it's like we're okay if we can get, and these things, we don't reach these points. And then, and you see now, like those points, the Arctic has melted. You know what I mean? Like those are like in the worst case scenario sort of sciences. They're like, if this happens, but we can avoid that if we blah 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 by 2030, and we didn't. And people
it's exactly the COVID numbers. Exactly like the COVID stuff, where in the summer we were like, we're gonna have this bad winter thing if we don't all mask up, and everybody was saying it. And my wife and I were kind of making little amateur predictions and stuff. And I am no expert, and my wife is not a scientist. And damned if we weren't so close to right about everything in our worst projections. And and so it kind of trains you to be like, oh, I'm not crazy. Like if you just read this sort of map, there's some basic facts out there. You don't have to be an expert to go, well, yeah, probably. And then when you have that worst thing confirmed, then you think about, like you said, the other stuff that seems you have the same thoughts on, and how people are rejecting reality in that regard. And you're like, no, I think I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it ain't great.
My fear was that I was going to be old and poor, but you guys are kind of, I'm worried.
Don't worry.
That's not going to happen.
You might get to one of them.
Yeah, you'll get one of them.
This is a hell of a pep talk, gents. I'm feeling better. Thank you.
What a win.
All right, let's get on to the light
great.
one. Number 10, Super Bowl prediction. What do you got?
That's an abrupt transition. I think I got the bends.
Yeah.
It's 10. We're trying to do it in an hour. You do 10 things in an hour.
But you know what?
Picking up
I would rather the end of the world than watch another Pro Bowl. How about that?
Yeah, you're in luck. There isn't one.
Yeah.
They're playing it on Madden. Did you see that?
Oh God,
Jeez.
that's depressing.
Yeah.
Who do I think?
I don't. You know who I would like to see win the whole thing is Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
They've earned it.
I'd like to see
So I
that.
don't have any predictions as to who's going to make it. I mean, Kansas City, they're so good, but I would like to see Buffalo win it all.
I think it's going to be Kansas City in the AFC, if not for Buffalo. Buffalo is the only team that's going to knock them off. The Steelers are absolutely not going to knock them off. The Steelers are way worse than their record. The NFC is where it gets a little bit foggy because I think there's just no really strong team. There's a bunch of, it could be the Rams, it could be the Saints theoretically.
Right.
Won't be the Saints.
Packers, Seahawks,
Could be the Packers.
Yeah,
Won't be the Seahawks.
Saints, Buccaneers.
Won't be the Buccaneers.
There's
The
a
only
bunch.
reason I think Saints is because their defense has been really.
I was going to
coming
say
along.
that.
And,
They're good enough to win with Taysom Hill.
Mhm.
yeah. So, but I'm going to go. Kansas City seems like the easy pick there.
Yeah, it is.
Go,
If the,
who's
if
the
the
best
Chiefs if the Chiefs play
who's
their
the
best
defense
game,
in the
no
AFC?
one is beating them.
No one in the NFL can beat the Chiefs if the
They
Chiefs are on.
threw
Right.
3 interceptions to the Dolphins and had a 30-yard sack and still won
Yeah.
pretty handily.
Yeah.
And the Super Bowl is a game where Andy Reid gets to have a whole extra week of planning. And, when Andy Reid gets time to plan, he's always a little bit better than almost anybody. Except maybe Sean Payton, who I don't like, but is good.
All right, let's go
Yeah.
around the horn. What do you say? What do you say, Tom Ryan? What do you want it to be?
I'll go with
Buffalo?
Kansas City, Green Bay. That's my prediction.
Okay, I'll buy that.
That's a safe prediction.
Simmons.
I'm gonna go New Orleans, and the Titans.
Whoa! Wow. Okay. Bold.
Wow.
Bold. I like it.
If somebody other than the Buffalo upsets him, that's who it's going to be, I think. But Derrick Henry has a big game, man.
Yeah, a big running game in cold weather games. It's that guy somehow. For one question ago, I'm like, global warming is going to kill us all in 6 months, and I'm like, well, it's going to get cold soon, and the Titans are going to win.
Yeah. That's right.
The Yeti is going to be running through the snow. That's right. All right, Brian Miller, tell us what's up.
It's KC, and I'm going to say New Orleans because it would be an interesting matchup. I'm honestly just so glad there's football. We could have had a no football time, and I've never appreciated football more. I've never watched Thursday night games closer, regardless.
Right.
My wife was like, are you annoyed when they spread all these games out because of COVID? And we got this Monday afternoon game and the Tuesday night game. And I was like, no, it's great.
It's great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You get to see
That's
more
actually
games.
my answer to the first question is what's the best thing about the pandemic? Tuesday night football.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love it.
Yep.
All right. The answer is Kansas City beats the Seahawks in a close one.
There you go. That's your
Seahawks.
answer.
I just have this sort of I just think
Peak early.
I'm writing
they've been
this
playing
down.
historically bad defense, but that offense when it clicks is so good. I think that's a fun
But they
team.
might not even make are they going to make the playoffs? I guess
Yeah.
in your mind they are. 'Cause
Playoffs.
the Rams are going to win. The Rams are going to win.
Playoffs. They're going to be fine.
You know who's going to win? The Eagles are going to win. Their defense is back. They got that first kid now running around.
I'm losing you, Tom. No, there was literally some crazy stat.
Losing
Did you hear
audio.
that? Too?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Kind of an exorcist thing.
God didn't want to hear
Yep.
that last point.
Say,
That's
your
right.
mother sews socks that smell. Is the- you know what that's from? You know what that is? In The Exorcist, when they do the TV dub, there's all that
Oh, yeah.
awful stuff she says. So there's a famous line, very dirty. Your mother does something in hell, and the TV editor of The Exorcist, your mother sews socks that smell, which
Your
doesn't
mother
come
sews
close to
socks that
approximating
funny.
insult to the original.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you not disparaging the end of the 10 spot with the awful language. Let's look at you.
Very polite.
It's funny. Well, thank you guys. This was awesome. What a great experiment. I don't know if this is going to make the cut, but it was fun to do it the whole time.
Yeah.
Have a couple beers and talk to some of my favorite people. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Just a
you,
reminder, Quick Snaps the podcast on Mondays at 7:30. 50 Toast back in this spot next week at 9 o'clock. Patreon, type in Costaki and come join us at All Pro Lines. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy. Be safe. Keep your heads down. Happy holidays. And
That's
talk
right.
to you soon.
See ya. Thank you.
See you guys.